Land as teacher, the gifts of maple trees. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. I'm Diane Cashin, coordinator of the York Region Nature Collaborative. I will be zooming in from my home across the street from our first wigwam at Lake St. George in Oak Ridges, Ontario, Canada. Hopi, grandmother Jock, Laura and Gerard and Jasmine are all in our second wigwam at Courtright Center in Woodbridge. I wish we were all there with you, but this is the next best thing given the state of the pandemic. We are recording this, and you will receive a copy of the recording as well as all the links to anything we reference in this webinar. So thank you for joining us. Megawitch, we are so pleased that you are here. And I'm turning it over now to you.
Nana Bojo Nindiwe Maganadok ni Kanasidok. Ni Mosheni no Jamayangan Quanadishnikas. Wabje Shindo Dam. Gaya Nijing Egwani Mandeo. Wawashana Gatmina ne are singaming the Dunjaba. O Jibwe Bode Wadami Algonquin Quet and down mean Wabangi we went to Gosha. So I have the cloth and the tobacco that was presented on your behalf to do this opening and to share this little bit for this beautiful first day of spring. Yeah. So Zigwin is here today. And we're going to be talking about the maple tree, which is like the first food that we received after the long winter fast. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sing invitation song. And the song is a Nana Bush song, our first teacher song. And it's for to call all the races of man together to the center where we can communicate and be brothers and sisters and family. So the song talks about my first teacher, I hear you. And we hear our first teacher in the singing of the birds. I was up at 5:30 this morning, the birds were singing outside. So I was so surprised that I could hear them. I was so surprised to hear them on the first day of spring. So it was at 5 o'clock that it got to be spring. So I listened to the birds and I was so grateful. I was so grateful for this time and the very fact that they're still doing their job. And this was a job that they promised in the beginning of time, that they would wake us up in a good way, that they would wake us up with their song and their music. And we were all supposed to gather outside before the sun came up. So the second part of the song says, Nana Bojo, ni wabama. My first teacher, I see you. And we see him in all the trees, all the kids that are playing. We see him in the sunlight. We see him when it's windy. Don't make a shadow in the door. Trying to be kind to the little kids because they stand in the door and make a shadow. They're blocking spirit. They don't know how powerful they are yet, but they are. So we see Nana Bush in everything. When we look at our friends, we see Nana Bojo. When we look at our animals, we see Nana Bojo. When we look at the sky and the clouds going past, we see Nana Bojo. He is everything. The third part of the story, the song says, Nana Bojo, Miigwech Wendam. It's my first teacher, my fierce teacher. You move me to gratitude. I am so grateful. Should go move the drum someplace else.
He was making it on the wood box.
There was a drumming sound when the kids were being outside. They don't know the ceremony. So like in Anishinaabe, kids would just be quietly sitting around someplace. But that's because they know certain things. So we're grateful for all of the teachings that Nana Bojo brought here. The way we live our life way, the worldview of Anishinaabe people are what we receive from Nana Bojo. So those are the things we're really grateful for. The fourth part of the story says Nana Bojo Nizagia. It says, my first teacher, I treasure you. I have such emotional gratitude for Nana Bojo. They say, I treasure him. So my grandma says, you're not supposed to treasure him because her treasure is like in a box. So she used to keep all her shiny things. So she called it her treasure. So when I said, I treasure you, she said, don't put him in the little box. So I said, okay, I'll keep the box open. But he's the one that brought us everything that we have. So I know that all the traditionalists, all the traditional people are feeling that overwhelming love for our first teacher. Now, miigwech kipasindriye. Bonjour, Nana bonjour, Ninondoa, Nana bonjour, Ninondoa, Nana bonjour. Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Niwa Bema, Nana Bojo. Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo. Miigwech wenda, Nana Bojo. Miigwech wenda, Nana Bojo. Nana Bojo. Nana Bojo. Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, Nizagia, Nana Bojo, Nizagia, Nana Bojo. Nana Bojo, Nana Bojo, When we sing the song, we're inviting spirits to come to where we are. So with the singing of the song, we invited spirits to come and sit where you are, in your house, inside at the bush, wherever you are sitting. That is where spirit is going to come now, because we are doing a sacred thing. We are opening up a program for little kids. And we want those little kids to understand and know all about spirit when they're really small. So in Anishinaabe territory, in my house especially, spirit was talked about all the time. Kids were always encouraged to be, when they heard the song being sung, to sit quietly with their hands extended, so the songs would fall in their hands, so that they would always remember the song. And that particular song is for everyone. I was given this song in my last fast, which was just before I turned 65. So I've carried that song now for 11 years, and I've been singing it for 11 years. And it's a giveaway song. You let people learn the song so that they can sing the song. And the song isn't just sung in this part where you just come sing one verse. The song in its totality is sung 4 times around. In the traditional sense, it is sung 7 times. So those words, when they're being sung and the kids are sitting around listening to the song, they pick up the song right away. That's how kids are. They have big, big spaces in their mind. And whenever we sing a song, especially in the language, that's where it goes. It fills up that space. I think that is why a lot of the traditions are still being held up by the old people, by the old Indians. They still understand the language. They know how to pray. And a lot of times, traditional people do not want you to use that word praying because it's so closely associated to residential school. So they don't call it praying. We call it nime. Putting our hands together. Nime. Nime. And when we see that word written down someplace, there's a vowel in front of that word, and it looks like anime, but it's just as catch in your throat. Anime. So it comes out nime, and people say, well, you hear lots of new language speakers will say nime, like they say Anishinaabe. Well, it's not the way you say it. It goes Anishinaabe. It's just a catch in your throat. Anishinaabe. 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 Are you saying the word? I don't see anybody's mouth moving, and they didn't move their mouths over here either. So you're in good company. Anishinaabe.
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 Mio, that's how you say that. A lot of the words that have, it's like que. There's an I in front of that word. It says que. Que. And you only hear que. But there's that catch in your throat. Que. Yeah. You're not supposed to even hear that. You're just supposed to formulate the word in your mind and then say que. The A is over here. It's lost between your mind and your tongue. So it says que.
Quay.
Ah, Mio. And they say, Ojibwe. It is not Ojibwe, it's Jibwe, 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 Jibwe. So you always have to make the sound. And like I said, the sound gets lost before, from your brain to your tongue. That sound, Ojibwe, Jibwe, Jibwe, Jibwe. Yeah, so the vowels each have their own sound, just like English. The I is different from the E is different from the A, and the A is different from the O. And the U, we very seldom use the U. We have AA, double A, that goes for the U. So now we're going to send up our words of thanksgiving. I'm going to say the prayer in Anishinaabe. And it says thank you, and the thank yous go for everything. We start with the whole of creation. And we say, Gitchimigwech. But we start with Nanabojo Gijamanido. Gitchimigwech. Mondamino Gijigat. Gimin Gomin. Gitchimigwech. Kinagego. Gijich Gamumpi. Wewena. Nishnabek. Weebamadsmin. Gitchimigwech. Kinagego. Gimisha. Nishkish Gonan. Nitokanan. Namin Shasan. Najosh. Nadorn. Nathroat. Nathroat. Naode. Nawaiya. Nachichak. Jibai. It's your soul spirit. It's like a two. It's a twin. There's a chichak and Chibai. Chichak, when we pass, goes out the doorway. The part that we call ghost, Chibai, stays here. Chibai is the touching spirit of our loved one who just departed. Never goes away. When you feel somebody touch you or lift your hair, that is your relative saying, I remember you. Do you remember me? Or just touch you and say, remember me. So old Anishinaabe, think of all of those people, all his relatives that went through this doorway. It usually starts with mommy and daddy. Nagashi, Ndede. Always starts like that. When we say that grateful thing, then we feel that love that goes to our Nagashi, Mother Earth, our Earth Mother. And our Earth Mother is the one that gave birth to us. She is our Earth Mother. We look at the land that we're standing on and we call her Mother Earth. So there's a difference there. Say Mother Earth, and our mama is our Earth Mother. So there's a difference. There's a big, a distinguishable difference when we're speaking Anishinaabe, so everybody knows who we're referring to. That's just part of the language. So the words that went up were, in the name of my first teacher, great kind spirit, listen, hear me. Thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us. Thank you for all the stuff that you put on Mother Earth so that we would live a good life. We would never be hungry or thirsty. Or we would never be lonely because we have our friends. We have our brothers and sisters. And we know our friends and brothers and sisters are always reaching out to us, supporting us, empowering us to keep on with our work. The next part says, Gichimigwech kinagego gijich gamampi. Gajamanado. Thank you, great kind spirit, great kind mystery, for everything that you put on this planet for us to use, for us to have a good life. And then again, we say, Gichimigwech Gajamanado. Kinagego Gimishang. Thank you, great kind mystery, for all the gifts that you give to us personally, our eyesight, our ears, our hair, our nose, our mouth, our throat, our throat, our heart. So that's just the first little part of that Thanksgiving. And there are three parts to saying thanks. You can say thanks, and that's really flippant. A lot of people say it without meaning. It is almost meaningless to say miigwech. So you bring it up a level and you say chimigwech. Chimigwech is a bigger thank you. You say it with thought, consideration. But then you lift it up a little bit higher and you say ge chimigwech. Turn off your things. You say ge chimigwech. So that lifts it up into the spirit realm. So there's like thanks, thank you very much. So get chimigwech is that thank you very much. Okay. And then you say get chimigwech all over again, and you're finished with that crown, with that spirit. And they call that the crown when we send out those words. Get chimigwech gajamanado. It's you're saying thank you very much, great kind spirit mystery. And that's what our word for the creator of all things, we refer to him as the great kind mystery. And somebody said, like Jesus. And I said, yeah, like Jesus. You don't see him, but you believe in him. It's like spirit. You talk about him, you can feel him, but you cannot see him. Right? So great kind mystery is like that. He will remain a mystery until I pass through this doorway, and then I will see him. I will see. And it's not just a singular person that I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be way out there on the Milky Way, looking at the whole of the earth and the universe, all of creation. So the next address that we make is to the eastern doorway. So I'll do the Anishinaabe part. Nana Bojo, Wabanung the King. Gichimigwech. Kinagego. Kinawia. Gichimigwech. Migazet with the Ebimbaza. Gichimigwech Picha Minwa Misquabenashi. Gichimigwech. Mishomis Gizes Gibanabian Mumpinungwa. Gichimigwech Nuk Miktibiki Gizes. Gibaya Yamampi. Ginadamo. Kinago Kwewak. Mampia Dodumke ing. Gichimigwech Nana Bojo. Who? Kinago Atsakana Gibina Mampi. Now how Gichimigwech. And those words say, greetings, the name of our first teacher, Eastern direction. And we say thank you to that bald eagle that flies in that direction, Migazeh. We say thank you to Pitcha, Minwa, Miskabeneshi, to Robin and Cardinal, those ones that wake us up in the morning, Anishinaabe alarm clock. And I remember someone coming from the great north, and the clock, the alarm went off on the clock. And that person got up and went and looked for it, and he went right over to the door, opened the door, and threw it outside. That's the respect that the clock got from that old person. Somebody said, "What happened?" And I said, "We all laughed. We laughed like crazy." I did that. Not one adult person says, "Go and get it." They just left it. So we say, "Gitchimi gwech." With Shomis Gizes. Thank you, grandfather's son, for looking at us today. And we say, "Gitchimi gwech, nuk mik the biki gizes, gibabaya yamampi." Thank you, Grandmother Moon, for coming around here all the time, every 28 days, like clockwork. She is our clock. Grandfather's son is our clock. Robin and Pitcha are our clock. So we didn't have to have any kind of mechanical thing at our house. Nothing. We didn't have. I think the only mechanical thing we had was a wind-up clock. Nothing else. And my mom, we didn't have mirror also. We had just a small little piece. My mom had a small little piece. She used to put on her lipstick when she was going to the village. Then we say, "Gitchimi gwech to nok mik the bikigizes" to Grandmother Moon for coming around here all the time and helping out all the ladies, all the women on this planet. Not just Anishinaabe people, but all the women. That's how generous she is, our Grandmother Moon. She takes care of everyone. She don't look at your skin and say, "Oh, we'll just send that one back over there." She's not like that. She's always kind and loving. She will always do that. So we say, "Gitchimi gwech" for that. A big, big thank you very much for that. And then we say, "Gitchimi gwech nanabosho kinago atsakana kibinamampi," as we're saying, thank you to our first teacher, Nana Bojo, for all the teachings that he brought this way. Everything we do as a people was through his direction. Through his direction. No one else's. We didn't have like that kind of government. Even the chief would not stand between you and Gijamanado. Your grandmother, your grandfathers don't step in between your talk and your emotion that you feel for Gijamanado. Nobody gets in between there. It is like he touches our skin. He wraps us around every day. And we know that he loves us. So we say, send a big Gitchimi gwech over there. We send our thoughts to the southern direction. Now, how Nana Bojo Jawanong the King. Gitchimi gwech. Kinigego. Kinawia. Gitchimi gwech. Ginu. With the Epimbasa. Gitchimi gwech Zigwan. This is her day. Say, to Zigwan. It's spring. It's spring. So say, "Happy birthday. Greetings. Spring. Zigwan." And then standing beside Zigwan is Wawash Kashi. That beautiful, beautiful deer. He promised 100% of himself to the people. Not just his meat, but we had his skin, his hair, his guts, his heart, his liver, his brain, his antlers, his dew claws, his shin bones, his guts, his sign, his poop. When you grow up in the bush, poop is not a dirty thing. poop is something that you use. We had like big stockpile of deer shit. I'll say the word right like that. I learned about deer shit and rabbit shit because when I was 7, I was given a basket to go and put everything that we could eat inside that basket throughout the day. It's called foraging. Foraging happened like from the time you left your house in the day. You put everything that you think is good to eat in your basket and you don't put it in your mouth. You take it home about 4 o'clock when the sun is just right here in the sky. That's what my mom says. When it's right here, you come home. So I'm always looking at the sun to see where it is and go like this. It's time to go home. That was our clock. That was our time. So when we say those words that always has so tremendous meaning, and I don't think anybody thinks the way I do. I'm still living in my childhood. So, and it's not not a long travel for me to go there. It just takes one single laughter, takes a word, and I'm right there. I'm a kid again. And that's how we don't get old. It's how we keep laughing. We see the humor in ourselves. So it keeps us forever young and laughing. Wrinkles on an old person's face are like medals that you get when you go to war. Every one of those lines is something that a sacrifice that you made for family, for children, for animals, for the environment. All of our thank yous as Anishinaabe people go there. Big thanks go to our parents because they brought us here. It is the light that shone from them that attracted baby spirit. Baby spirit came down here to look at the, got too close to the light and he was entrapped. And you were born out of love. The seed was planted. Conception happened, and that's when life starts. Doesn't start when you're born. It starts before you were pregnant. It's when life starts. The life that you have for your children. My life started because my mom and my dad loved each other. In our household, it was not a terrible thing to talk about where we come from. When I asked my Auntie Katie, she was the youngest one of my aunties, and I asked her, so how did we get there? Because the word was, your dad planted the seed in your mom's body and you grew. Well, like, you know, I'm the kind of kid says, well, how did it get there? How did it get there? So my sister looked at me. She said, well, that's another story. Well, that's another story. Right? That's how she answered me lots of times. Well, that's another story, she would say all the time. And she was like, maybe she's my teacher now. She's 83. She's still my teacher. And she still says funny things to me. Right? Yeah. She treats me like I was 17 still. That I haven't grown past that time. And so she still gives me good direction. I phoned her last week, and because she's 83, you allow for her mind to not be there. So when I phoned and I said, it's Jacques, it's your sister. And she said, who is this? I said, it's Jacques. It's your sister. And she said, how are you? She said, have you been sick yet? And I said, no, I got my shots. I said, I'm not going to be sick. And she said, oh, that's really good. I said, did you get yours? And she said, no, I think they forgot about me. So I phoned the band office and I said, you got to remember to give her a vaccination. She's old, right? She's your elder. She's a chief matron on our reserve. which is the chief traditional person. So when we talk to the southern direction, and we say that Gitchimigwech to that deer, we're saying thank you for everything that he gives us, for the beauty of him. For just seeing him on the side of the road, I'm like the kind of person that is like, oh, where's my Sama? Get my Sama, roll down the window and throw it out there. It's got like funny stories about that. But we're just gonna do this praying. Keep on getting lost in my stories. But the next one we send greetings to is that there's one spirit sitting right beside that deer. And we say, Gitchimigwech Maingan. Ginadamoshnampina. And we're saying that thank you to that big white wolf that sits there. That big wolf that sits there right beside the deer, that food that he eats. And we say Gitchimigwech to him because he teaches us how to be with our family. Not to bite them, not to yell at them, not to turn our backs on them, not to hit them, not to ignore them, to listen, to listen. And that's why we're sitting here today, is to let our kids know that this is happening every day. There is some traditional person saying these very same words that I'm saying. Maybe not the same. We always have to create our own songs, but it has the same methodology. We all have the same teachings. My sister don't say my same words. I've been praying for a very long time all over community. And somebody recorded my prayer about 30 years ago. And they wrote it in their newsletter of the month. And I saw it and I said, oh, it sounds just like me. And I kept on reading. I said, it is me. I phoned and I said, why did you do this? You did not have the right. When I spoke to my sister, she said, everything that comes out of your face and somebody hears, you have just given them the right to repeat those words. So that was my experience moving into this beautiful Ojibwe. I did not start speaking Anishinaabe until I was 40. I was 40. Before that, it was always English. And I used to be really sad because even my brothers and sisters, when I spoke Anishinaabe, they would say English only. Because I was really well educated by the time I was 7. They said, the knowledge that you have of the English language is so good. You need to perfect it. You need to make it more. So we studied what? English. English grammar, English literature, everything English. But that didn't stop me from learning the language because everybody in my house spoke the language. So I got to understand the language. They just did not allow me to say the words. They let me say like Gitchimigwech and Nanabojo, Daga, all of those kinds of words. Bean again, Daban, Gawin Dakshazagasi. All of those words is like it was common. It was every day. So that's how I learned the language. And for people to say that I was fluent, I'm not fluent. I speak a Bush Indian, Bush Ojibwe, and it's very, very plain, very simple. It's not big and dressed up. It's plain and simple. It's just like I teach. So now we're looking over there and we see a little mouse, and we say, Gitchimigwech wawab ginoji. Ginadamoshnampine. Thank you, mouse, for helping us out all the time. in the beginning of time, when all the animals were asked, how are you going to support these human beings that don't know nothing? All the animals, the wolf said, I will teach them to sing. The bird said, I will teach them to sing. Pitcha and Robin said, I will wake them up with good sound. Deer said, I will share every part of my body with them. Wolf said, I will teach them all about family. And little mouse, when he heard that, ran away and he was crying so hard. Nana Bojo heard him and went over there where he was crying. He said, what's the matter? And little mouse looked at him and said, I have nothing to give. I'm just small. And Nana Bush looked at him and said, because you live so close to the earth, you are in charge of the Sama. You are charged with looking after the tobacco for the people. You can see it when it touches the ground. And most of all, you can see when it doesn't touch the ground. So if he sees that it's not touching the ground, he'll go right directly to your house. And he'll go shit in all your food, make holes all over the place. And what's he saying to you? He's saying, you forgot your tobacco. So, as Nishnabekwa, you get up, go get your tobacco, and you go, look, I'm going to take it outside. And you're talking, addressing that little Wawabganoji that's sitting there looking at you. And you tell him, look, I'm going to take this outside. Come. So you invite the mouse to come out there with you to see the Sama falling on the ground. So we say Gichimigwech for that. We send our thoughts to the western direction, the doorway to spirit world. So we say Nana Bojo Ningabian. Gichimigwech. Ginata Moshanan Pene. Gichimigwech. Nimki Benes with the Ebimbazek. Gichimigwech. Mashkutin Bijek. Ginadamo. Kinago Kwewak. Wewin. Gui. Mindido Kamin. Yes. We're saying thank you to the western direction. And we say thank you to that dancing star because he is the one that escorts us through this doorway into spirit world, the dancing star. He is the big chief of all the men. He is their boss, even though they don't know it. When they need something, they should address that one as Nene, as men. They should be talking to that one there, Ningabian, the dancing star, because he's for them. That's what he said in the beginning of time. I am for you, he said to all the Indian men. All the men on this planet, he will be that guide, that teacher. Next, we come down a level and we say, Gichimigwech Nimki Benes. Gibina Mampi Nebe. And we say thank you to that Thunderbird because he is the one that brings the water. He is the one that tells us the water is coming because he just sounds his voice. Sometimes it's small and sometimes it's really huge. That's the thunder. He tells us that water is coming. He is going to bring it. So we say thank you to him because he is also the one that teaches the women how to uphold that water, how to lift it up. He is the one that holds all the water songs. He is the one we fashioned our copper vessels out of. Called it, the old people call it a Nimki Benesmoish. And that means, if you're Anishinaabe, any of you out there, you know what that means. Thunderbird shit. That's what the copper is. And they called it that because after the storm, when the men would walk all over the hills, they would see splotches of it that was washed with the water and the rain. They saw it lying there. And what did it look like? It looked like cow shit. When you go into a field and you see where the cows are messing, like they've got like big spread out things, cow patties, they call them, right? Well, this one here, that copper bowl that you hold in your hand. See this copper dish here? It is sacred. We all have, as women, copper cups, copper vessels, because why? We're in charge of the water. And Thunderbird supplies that vessel. They used it because when they picked it up off the ground, they could bend it with their hands. It's so soft. They mold it and fashion it into dishes and cups. And it's just for water. It's not supposed to be put on the stove, because you're detracting from the medicine power that he put in that copper. So we don't put hot stuff in our copper cups. We use the water that we get from the earth. That's all we put in there is water. We put cedar tea in there, berry juice. And the reason we don't put berry juice in there, because when the acid from the juice touches the copper, it changes it. The copper will not change the water. The copper vessel will not change how the water tastes, unless it's old and dirty. And if we as women are in charge of the water, we want our water vessels to be beautiful and shiny. That's how we take care of our sacred things. We keep them shiny and beautiful and clean. We came down from Thunderbird and we looked at that beautiful buffalo. The one that takes care of the women here on the planet. The one that will, when you're sad and sorrow and you're depressed, that's who you call out for. Mashkadin b'shikya shkena, not emotion. Big buffalo, please come and help me. Please, I need help. Duga, please. Not emotion, help me. Please help me. She is the one that teaches us how to do our ceremonies. She is the one that keeps them in order. And then we say, get your miigwech all over again. Get your miigwech. Get your miigwech.
Get your miigwech.
Do I sound priest-like? Did I see your mouths moving? Get your miigwech. I could see your faces. So I can see whether you're saying get your miigwech or not. But you can turn off your pictures if you want. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can say turn off your pictures and your sound. You have choice. As human beings, that's the greatest gift we were given, was choice. Animals don't have choice. Birds don't have choice. Bugs don't have choice. The only way they have choice is if you empower them with Sama in your hand. You give life to them. Only if you have Sama in your hand. So we're finished with that direction. We say, get your miigwech.
Get your miigwech.
We look to the northern direction, that place of healing. that beautiful white place in the northern direction. And we say, Nana Bojo, Giwed Nung Nikain, Ginatamosh Pene. And those words are also applied to all of the directions. We say Nana Bojo, greetings, the name of our first teacher. Thank you for helping us out all the time. Chimigwech Ginatamosh Pene. Pene means always, forever. Pene, or again, all the time. Again, all the time. There's so many meanings to that word. Then we say, Gichimigwech Bibun Abe, Ginadmo Dodomake, Wewen, Ginba, Nungumdbik, Nungumbibun. And we're saying thank you to that winter spirit, Old Man Winter, for providing and taking care of his beautiful daughter, Mother Earth, by providing her with a beautiful white blanket to sleep under, so that she will have a good sleep. So we say Gichimigwech for that. That Bibun Abe and Zigwan just went through their last fight. Bibun Abe is winter, Old Man Winter, and Zigwan is spring. She goes to him in her youth and says, okay, it's my turn now. You need to go home. You need to go and sleep. You need to go and rest. You worked really hard. And he looked at her, and the only way he can fight her is with his tears. And he tells her, I won't be able to hear the kids laughing and playing. I won't be able to hear the people singing. I won't be able to hear grandmother's soft voice. Just a couple of days, let me stay. So she gives him what? 4 days. She says, okay, that's good. She's kind. And she gives him that extra 4 days. So he stays around. And then she goes and tells him, okay, 4 days is over. You need to go. So on the 4th day, she's pushing him and telling him, you need to go. And because he's an Old Man Winter and he's brittle in his bones, she said, if I push you harder, your bones are going to break. You should go home. You should go and sleep now. I'll take care of everything for you. So he says, okay. And he goes. And she's here for good, Zigwan. So we say, Gichimigwech for that. We look over there and we see that great big polar bear sitting over there. The strongest, the biggest doctor of the Anishinaabe people is Polar Bear. That's where he lives. And just guess what? We as human beings are destroying his home. And we can't take it back. All the little ones say, we need to make great big freezer boxes and make our own ice islands over there in the north. Kids are like that. They'll say, okay, Mommy, you should take the fridge over there. Mommy, you should go take the freezer over there. That's how kids are. They want to help out. So when we talk to them about the water, and we start when they're small like this, they will know by the time they are teenagers that it's so important to take care of the water. Right? It's so important for them to sing the water songs. There's not just one water song. All of the rest of the songs are reserved for the Midewigon, the Grand Medicine Lodge. but there's one floating around here, and you all know that song, or you should know that song. It's a must. You need to learn that song, and it's on the computer. You just have to put what? Ojibwe water song. You type that in, you press search, and it will look for that, and it will bring it up to you. It's my friend, Doreen Day. She is the chief of the Martin clan of the Eastern Doorway. And all of the people where I'm from said, you should be there. I said, no, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. Good enough. I'm going to be a doctor in June. So, hey, after university, I've been going to university for how long? Since 2006. It's a long time, but like I have a master's in environmental studies. I have a teaching diploma to teach what? Environmental and sustainability. What does sustainability mean? It means everything that we're saying in this prayer. Thank you prayer this morning. So I have a paper that says I teach this. There's a paper that says I teach this. But I also have shells and colors. I have an outfit to wear that tells everybody I'm in my second degree. I am a teacher. Right. So yeah. So I got all those things. Now I want to be like a doctor of education. So I'm going to be that. But I want it to be buddied up to doctorate, PhD, right? So like that's my demand. So I'm thinking about that right now when I'm holding this feather in my shaker in my hands. So hey, you're going to do good.
Doctor of psychology.
Doctor of psychology, doctor of education, master of the environment. And that's just my Anishinaabe stuff. Has nothing to do with writing stuff down. I did very little writing. I talked a lot and people wrote it down. People wrote it down. And I said verbatim. So they go, ah ha ha, verbatim.
Yeah, I read LOL.
Oh, LOL.
Laugh
Yeah. Laugh out loud. I didn't know that's what that meant. Or OMG. I had to ask people after I heard it for about 3 years. I said, why do you say that? OMG. And they said, oh my God. I said, what?
Oh my God.
I said, really? And they said, yeah, really. And I go, okay. So do I use those? No, I don't. Do I put my hands on this typewriter? Yes, I do. Right. I do write a little bit. My writings are beautiful. Right. I read my papers that I wrote like 10 years ago and I go, oh, geez, that's such a beautiful thing. And my name is on it. I go, oh, wow, that's really beautiful. Wow, that's really beautiful. So we look at that big white polar bear over there and sadness happens. Sadness happens. Makes me cry. Makes me cry at what we're doing to that, to our environment. So we're going to think about that when we're saying Army Gwetches to him. Now, Gichimi Gwetch Wapshkama, what would the Amadabe? Gichimi Gwetch Ginadamo. Ginadamo. Kinigo. Nishinabek. Ejabak Nagazwat. Oxy Gamikeajik. Gichimi Gwetch Ginadamo. Kinigo Nishinabek. Gawin Guivis Nasiwat Nongwa. Gawin and Dasiwat Goja. Gichimi Gwetch Ginadamo. Kinigo Panojiak. Ayajik Mompido Domkeing. Chimigwechki Mina. Nibe. Mijim. Mishkeke. Minwazagidwin. So we're saying thank you to that big white polar bear for taking care of all the people who are in jail. Ejabaknagaz, what? all the people who are in hospital. All of the people who do not have anything to eat today. Kinawia gawin gwiwis na siwat nongwa. For helping out all the people who do not have a home, who are homeless. Chimigwachki nadmo kinagunishnabe gawin and dasiwa goja. That don't have a place to live. And then we say Kichimigwach. For helping out all the kids on this planet. For giving them water, food, medicine, and love. The earth. Now how do domaka? Kichimigwach kinigego kinawia. Kichimigwach kinadamo. Kinigunishnabek. Ninwak. Minwakwewak. Kichimigwach niba. Kichimigwach mijim. Kichimigwach mimshkeka. Mishk. Kike. Mishkeka. Another hard word. Kichimigwach. Zagadun. Thank you for giving us the water from your body, your life's blood. Thank you for giving us food from your breast. It does not come from outer space, our food. It comes from the earth. She is our mother. She will feed us until we are buried within her body. It's give back time for everything that she gave us while we were alive and walking here. We give this empty vessel back to her. So we say Gichimigwech. Zagiduin. And she says that when you're tired and lonely and depressed, to come and sit on her body, to lie down on her body, and she will give us all the love we need to help us through hard time. We look underneath her skin, and a whole lot of miigwetches go to the bugs that live there, make their homes there. We say miigwetch to all the small animals that live there and make their homes there. We say gichimigwetch to all the animals that go and sleep there in the wintertime. We say gichimigwetch to everything that comes from her body. We say gichimigwetch minidoshin sak. Gichimigwetch jaganshi awasiak. Jaganshi. Ganshi awasiak. Gichimigwetch. Mijiken. Makanak. Squatis. Kakajishan. Kinigo. Makwa. All of those ones that sleep there. And we say thank you to them. Gichimigwechki nadamo dodoma kat weniguin sewe. We say thank you to all of those, the animals, all of the people that the ones that bury and go there in the wintertime, to all of every single bug that lives there. And we say thank you because they are the ones that are helping Mother Earth take good breathing breath, take good breaths. So she will breathe really well. We send our thoughts to the sky world. And we're encouraged as young people when we're sad after a person passes. The old people will say, if you're lonely tonight, go outside and look at the night sky. And you will see the beautiful northern lights. Those are the old people. Everybody who has passed away gets to go there and dance for the people. So when we go out there and we look and we see our grandmas and our grandpas and our mamas and our dads dancing up there for us, it gives us comfort. We are not so lonely because we can see them. We go outside on a nice summer day after the rain and we see the beautiful colors going across the sky. And we say, Gitchimigwech Nimki Benes, Nop Kawaga. Yes, we say, thank you very much to the Thunderbird scarf, that beautiful rainbow, that symbol of hope, that after every storm, a beautiful thing happens. A beautiful thing happens. So with all our sorrow and pain, we know that when it's finished, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. We go again to the night sky. When all those little kids are crying and saying they won't be able to see their daddy. As teenagers, we're encouraged to take them outside and show them the Milky Way and say, that's where your daddy is walking. On the Warriors Road. Gitchitamika. So we say that, Gitchimigwech Gitchitamika. Our last thoughts go out to the four directions. Windani Maknodinon. And we say, Mishom Sinanik. Nuk Misnanik. With the Amadabi Gwindani Maknodinon. Bin Gemampi. Mudbik. Nadamushnam. We do Kushnam. Shawinishnam. Hajawinishnam Jaminado Jawinishnam. Hajawinishnam Jaminado Jawinishnam. Hajawinishnam Jaminado Jawinishnam. One more time. Hajawinishnam Jaminado Jawinishnam. Nikonigana. Nikoniskinago. All my relations. So we said thank you to the Northern Lights. We said thank you for the rainbow. We said thank you for the Milky Way. We called the grandmothers and the grandfathers who sit in the four directions, those ones who are full of kindness, who are gentle, who always speak in a beautiful voice. We invite them to come here to where we are sitting, where you are sitting in your house, to help us out at this time. Thank you. Oh, my name is Jacques Lavalley, and I'm feeling happy today. Miigwech.
Nana Bojo,
Nana Bojo.
Gajanane, and Adishnikos, Wabjeshi Dodem Gaye. Hopi Level Martin are my other given names. I was born on the western edge of Massachusetts along the Housatonic River. My ancestry is Lenni Lenape, Briton and European. And I was raised here in Diggeronto, the sacred territory of the Mishnabek, the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Tobacco, and Petun nations. And that's currently in the care of the Mississaugas of the Credit. And it's here in this context that I belong to Ojibwe Martin clan, the Wabajeshi. And it's my traditional teacher here and auntie that you've been listening to, Jacques Lavalley, that first heard my name in Ojibwe as Gajanane, kind man. And so it's following those traditional teachings from that bush Ojibwe that she talks about, of Samanatum, tobacco first. That everything that you're experiencing and hearing about today all started with that. So you can see I'm standing in this beautiful wigwam, and this is at the heart of a bush school or nature school at Courtright Conservation Center on Mississauga lands, in the care of the TRCA right now, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And every maple sapling, so we're talking about Ninatig today, that beautiful maple tree. Each maple sapling that's bent in this beautiful shape of Mother Earth, this beautiful dome, this beautiful globe, because it goes right under the earth as well. Each maple sapling that came from the sugar bush here was, we talked to it before with our sama in our hands and offered tobacco to each of those little trees and explained to them this work that we're doing at the place that is called Edge of the Bush, because it's not quite Ojibwe bush territory, and it's not quite colonized either.
That's the land of the Mississaugas. They're Anishinaabe.
It's so we're in,
place.
yeah, we're in between, doing this work in between. So we're trying to work on how much ceremony to share over the computer and how to work between nations. So part of the teachings that I want to share with you about this this wigwam comes from a memory teaching bundle, which has this sacred circle you can see on my jacket here, with the 4 colors that Gokumis talked about. And I can show you that bundle here. Let's see, there we go. So there's those 4 sacred colors, and there's a lot of teachings in those. There's the 4 directions, the 4 sacred medicines, the 4 seasons, the 4 races of human beings. And so those, when we do that, shared that song at the beginning, that Nana Bojo song, we're inviting you all to come to the center there. And that's that central fire in the middle. And from that space, that's where we can see the equality of all our teachings that we bring from those 4 directions. And so this work to share those words and those that Anishinaabeg way is to make space for that in this context, especially when we're working with little children and they're touching their feet to Mother Earth. So the teachings that we're going to share with you today, and the talk that we're having about those maple trees, we're going to get to hear some of the oldest bush stories, those Ojibwe stories and Potawatomi, about how to relate to those trees. And so as you're listening today, I want you to try to listen for that circle. We went through the big circle of the prayer already, but there's 4 basic teachings that we've been talking about for the last 6 months or so, called about a seasonal pedagogy. And this is this one teaching that comes right to the edge of that bundle and to the edge of what you heard today, that everybody can pick up, because it relates to the seasons that we all experience. And so as you think about and listen today, I want you to listen for that birth, that beginning that comes in the spring and in with the solstice coming. And with that beginning, because right now we're just at that spring equinox and nothing's quite growing, but the maple trees are coming back to life. But as we come into summer and that strawberry is born and with all those beautiful seeds on it, that's when that birth really begins. Right now, the seeds are under the earth still. And then in that fall time, when things come into movement and that harvest begins, think about that movement. And at winter time, that relationship that we have with our families when we gather close together at winter solstice, and that blue in our relationship to Father Sky and the sky world. And then at spring that we're at right now, that equinox, when all those mysteries that have been sleeping under the snow start coming back to life. And that's black for that great kind mystery that we heard about, Gejemanado. So as you're listening to stories today, I want you to think about that concept of those seeds growing, starting at birth, coming into movement, just like a little baby when it starts to crawl, coming into relationship, just like those kind and loving parents that brought you to this place. And then that passing, how do you, the giving back, because you're going to hear all those parts as you listen to these stories today. And so that's the pedagogy we're working on and sharing with you. That went into this wigwam that we're talking from, that's gone into our planning, why we're talking to you at the new moon as the maple moon's growing. So I'm just going to now, following that sacred circle, we heard from Kokomis and you heard from me. I'm Shkabewis, ceremonial helper and messenger. And then I'm going to pass the computer around, because normally we'd be all sitting together and we'd be able to pass that eagle feather around. And if you can just go back, Diane, to that. This is that protocol you've heard about. You've heard long versions, but we're encouraging you to share as much as you know, because this is starting place. This is that ethical space, as they say in the academy, of edge of the bush, as we were talking about, is when you come to a circle, it's expected that you're able to hold that feather and say who you are, where you're from, whose land you're in, and acknowledge that, and then how you're feeling in your heart. So we got a big circle today, but I'd like you to try to add that in the chat. And I'm just going to pass that eagle feather around so you can hear from the few other people that are with us helping out with this ceremony today.
Nana Boju, Nimki Pinesi Kwe, Indigenous Kas, Gogondodam. My name is Laura. My spirit name is Thunderbird Woman. I belong to the Fish Clan. My nation is Sagigan Satigan from the East Coast. I'm very happy to be inside of this lodge that I helped to build with Opie, Gerard, and Isaac. Crosby.
And Johnny Moore.
Johnny Moore.
Yeah.
It brings me wonderful memories looking around all the hard work that we put it here, especially when I went to harvest for the cedar tree. That it's inside of this lodge. That cedar tree, the center of the lodge. The cedar tree spoke to me, made me to stop twice and says, pick me up. It's me that you are looking, you are waiting to harvest. So I approached Opie and I said, Opie, come with me, because this tree is talking to me. Is telling me that's his time, that he has another job, teaching the young children to get inside of this lodge. I'm pleased to be asked and invited to be here with Gokomis, Jacques, and Opie. And it's such a wonderful day outside. Miigwech, Chigichi Miigwech.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Green. I work here at the Courtright Center on the land that is now cared for by the Mississaugas of the Credit. And I'm feeling very joyful and very rejuvenated and very happy to be here today, smelling lots of delicious food that people have brought and worked really hard to share. And I brought some sap from the maple forest here at the Courtright Center. Here's my sap that I've brought. And I also brought some syrup that our preschool students helped to cook over the fire. And here you can see it. I asked if I could take some to bring here today and share, and the students agreed that that was okay. So it was very kind of them to donate some to us, and I'm happy to bring that as well. And then I've also brought a bundle of tobacco on behalf of the YRNC and the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, again, to honor what we've been learning here in the past few years with Jacques. And with everyone that's come to join us. So thank you, and Miigwech to everyone. I am very happy, very joyful.
I love it.
Nana, bonjour. Nene, Bimi Wedun. Nibi Bimi Wedun Nene Indishnakas. Musnin Dodem. Wabanaki. We win Guchik. We win the Goshik. I'm learning right now. We win the Goshik Nimwa. Minwa. My name is Gerard Boudreau. My spirit name is Water Carrier Man. I'm from the East. My background is Mi'kmaq, Abenaki, Algonquin, and also French Acadian. And I'm so pleased to be here with Jacques and to be part of this ceremony. I'm helping Hopi right now with the fire. I'm the fire helper. Yeah. And I'm happy to be here. Oh, it was a tough one.
So we're going to come back around and you're going to share. Is that time? Okay.
Do they want to say their names?
Oh yeah, so they've been saying their names here. We've got some people in the chat. Diane, do you want to pass that feather virtually over to you?
I've already introduced myself in the chat.
Oh,
And as well as a few people. So we do invite you to share your relations in the chat. And
it's always so neat to see how where people are coming from and around the around Ontario, but around the globe as well, and to hear them just even mention those Indigenous names. We've had people in the past coming from as far away as Kazakhstan and Greece and in England and New Zealand, Australia. So what we're talking about with this concept that's coming from Ojibwe teachings, but that concept of being born, moving, coming into relationship, and passing is something that every Indigenous people on the planet has their way of talking about that. So what I'm encouraging you to do is, it's not to say just, this is not a colonization of saying everybody's got to do it this way. It's encouraging you to reflect and to think about it and think about how that applies to your life. And the best way to think about it is with a little person. If you walk around with a little person, watch what they do. They're really good at teaching you, especially if you walk outside with them and they touch their mother, the earth. You'll watch this amazing thing happen. So I'm going to pass the feather back to Gokamis, and she's going to talk a little bit about the some of these original stories of the maple trees.
Nanaboja, Minwa. Greetings in the name of our first teacher again. Minwa. So the stories that I'm going to share with you they're really old stories. This one came from a teacher that I was working with one year, maybe 20 years ago. I had to follow him around. I was his helper for the summer months, and I needed to go and learn some things that were different from my territory. So I went down to Minnesota and spent some time with Porky White. And he was an excellent teacher. He was very funny. Anyway, he told me this story because I went there when it's sugar bush time, and he's in charge of I think 2 sugar bushes, or he was when he walked around on this earth. Anyway, one of his stories was about this couple, Anishinaabe people that suffered really greatly throughout a really harsh winter. And they didn't have anything left to eat. And the dad kept on going, would go out every day and go hunting and look for food, any kind of food. If it was a woman, if it was the mother, she would actually gather bark and leaves and stuff, right? And things like that, so she could cook them up and feed them to her family. Well, this fellow, he kept on going hunting every day. And she would say, well, maybe you forgot to sing your song. And he'd go, no, I sang my song. He said, I did everything right. He said, I sent up that smoke. And he said, I said who I was and what I was wanting, what my expectations were. He said, and sang my song, my hunting song. He said, but nothing happened. So they were sitting nicely and quietly inside their wigwam. And she stopped all of a sudden. She said, what did you say? And he looked at her. He said, I didn't say anything. He said, I heard somebody speaking. And he said, well, it wasn't me. So she got busy again doing the stuff that she was doing. And she heard his voice again. She said, did you hear that? And he says, her husband says, no, I didn't hear anything. So he said, maybe we should just sit quietly. So they sat quietly. They sat down, sitting quietly. And they heard this voice. And they said, come on outside here. So they got up and they left and they went around their wigwam. And at the back behind their wigwam was this beautiful, beautiful sugar maple tree, soft maple. And they're standing there and they're looking at each other and they're saying, okay, that we're here. And they heard the voice say, cut my body and catch the water that comes from there. It will bring you satisfaction. So that's what they did. They went outside, he went, cut the tree, and that's where the sap came running out of. So they had to figure out how are they going to capture this water. We have things called wigwas makak, which are like birch bark pots. So she went inside, got a birch bark pot, and he made a splay, right? He made like a splint, a long splint, and he cracked the tree and he stuck it in there and he put the bowl beside, and that's where the sap went running into. They did not know that they should cook it yet. They hadn't got that far. But he called all his children and he said, here, have some of this. It will satisfy you. It will satisfy your hunger. So they drank it. Every day they would go out there and they would collect that and they would have ceremony and lift up the water and they would drink it. And that is why maple syrup, maple tree, is so helpful to the Anishinaabe people. The respect that's given to that tree is really great. So when the people were talking to the tree, they said, what's your name? And he said, I'm the man tree. Nininatik. And we use that word today still for cedar, for maple tree. Except it's got shorter. They don't say nininatik. They say ninatik. So the M is missing through that word. So you don't say ninemitik. And even lots of people now, when they say anatik, they don't know that first part of that word means man, stands for man, nina. That's part of your name, nina. It's part of every man's name is nina is attached to it. It's like nigabo, niganagabo nina. Is I am standing in the front, man. It is the same with all men. They always attach nina to their name. There are some names that you don't attach nina or kwe to. All the women's names end with kwe. So that maple tree still has that name, except that it's small. When people have a word in a language, they make it small. So a lot of the bush Indians, the Indians that grew up in the bush, the traditional people, will say Nenenotik or Nenemitik. And a lot of people now just call it Nenotic. They don't say Nene and they don't say Mitik. It's like made it one, Nenotic. So that's where the name for that tree came. That is why we respect and honor this maple syrup that we're having today as part of our feast. When kids share, it's a long process when we make maple syrup. It's a long process. I remember when I was a little kid being in the maple sugar bush for 10 days. That's sleeping there, eating there, and helping out. And they say, well, how did you help out? And I said, any way we could. I said, mostly it was getting wood, gathering wood and bringing it to where the fire was. That was, we spent a lot of time doing that because the fire has to be going 24 hours a day, what they call 7 days a week, right? 24/7, I think. Yeah, 24/7. So I was there for 10 days. It was longer than 24/7. It was 24/10. But yeah, it was great. It was hard work. But when you're there, you like when the work was happening, it's like the kids didn't run around making lots of noise. They just stood and watched what was going on. And they would say, like, touch person and say, how come he did that? How come he did that? Right. And when they'd see people going to the fire, they were the first ones to get up and say, you need to be careful. They need to be careful of the fire, not to burn themselves. So they were like that. So the second story, that story that I just talked about, that Nenotic, is the Ojibwe story. It's an Ojibwe story. And because my mom, my dad's mom was Budewatami, we say that. We say that story. I've given the right to tell that story too. And that story is really funny. It's kind of funny. You know how people are when they're young. When people used to get married and connect up with another human being, they were usually still like young teenagers. So, and they would just hang out together. Well, this young fellow saw this beautiful young woman. He said, I will marry up with her and spend all his whole life with her. And the dad, his parents look at him and say, well, you need to go talk to her parents and tell her parents what you want to do. So he went there and he told them, that I want to marry I want to be together with your daughter. And I'm a good hunter. He said, I'm really good at everything I do. And, people are not supposed to brag about themselves. So he couldn't say very much about him. But when he was talking about them, they started remembering when they saw him walking around and doing stuff and how well he did it. So they gave him the right to approach their daughter and ask her, will you come and live with me? Right? Will you come and stay with me? And she really liked him a lot because he was a very good looking fellow. She was a nice looking woman. So they said, okay. He said, okay. He said, we'll do that. So they shared that teepee, and they have to go through a whole process as Anishinaabe people. When you get married, you're supposed to tell your life story right then and there to all the people gathered, what your life was like and how you're going to be in your future with your woman that you're living with. And she has to get up and do the same. And while they're doing that, when they're talking about each other, they're tied to each other. They're attached by a red string or red sinew, a red piece of cloth. But they're tied by their wrists and they're not supposed to take it off. So they got married. They're living together. And because he was a great hunter, he would go out every day and wander around in the bush. And he had expectations. his expectation was that when he came back, the food would be ready and the lodge would be nice and clean, all of those women things, right? Those things don't apply today because usually it's the man that stays home and the woman goes out and works. Yeah, that's the way it is on the reserve. Men work like all summer because they have like what they call seasonal work, right?
Seasonal.
The woman's work is never done. It's always, and it's permanent, it's all the time. So he tells her this one time, he says, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to go out hunting. He said, and I want to have, when I come back, I want to have some really good food. So she says, okay, she's all happy about that, right? So she goes and she goes out to the backyard. She cuts up the meat and puts it in the pot. She goes out in the backyard and there's sap out there in the yard, in the pail, in the makuk. So she brings that in and she puts it in her cooking pot with the meat. She goes, hangs it over the fire and goes out visiting, forgets all about it for the whole day. So her partner comes home and there's nobody there. There's no food on the table. Well, they didn't have tables, but there was no food ready. He goes and he looks at the fire and he sees the pot hanging there. He opens it up and looks and it's just a black mass. So he says, that's no good. So he covered it back up when it sat in the wigwam and he was mad. So when he was sitting there being mad, his stomach started to make noise. So he got up and he goes, open the lid on the pot and looks in there and he says, I will eat this. So he took some of that and he put it in his mouth and it was so tasty. And he goes, oh, that is so good. So he grabs the pot, went to visit everybody on the reserve and he says, here, taste this. My woman made it. My woman made it. So before he took the pot around, he went around, looked for her, and everybody said they didn't see her. So he went to his mother-in-law's, her mom, and he asked her for his wife, and she said, she's not here. And he said, you tell her that, that everybody likes what she cooked. He said, it's very, very good. Here, you should have some. So he gave her some to his mother-in-law and she ate and she said, oh, it's so beautiful. So he went away and she looks at her daughter and says, you need to go home. She said, that stuff that you cook is really, really good. You need to go home. So she goes home and she goes in and she's sitting down there really nice, quiet and beautiful. Her and he gets her little dish and gives it to her and he said, this is really, really good. He said, really love the way you did this. And she was looking at him the whole time and she said, I didn't do anything. She said, though, it wasn't water, it was sap, maple sap that she cooked the meat in. So all the day it was on over the heat, so it got thick and it cooked the meat and it's just beautiful. Today they serve that in the best, in the feasts. It's called sweet meat. Yeah. So that's that story. That's how we got to have maple syrup. We knew that when you put it on the heat and you leave it there all day, it gets thick. Well, now they don't. They do that. When I was a little kid, there was like lots of people. There was maybe 2 families that had one like big sugar bush. And there was sugar bush next was by some other family. But this family over here was in the Squattishs and the Pamajuangs. This was our place. So that's where we spent the whole time. My sister said she doesn't remember that time when we spent in the sugar bush. But she was schizophrenic. I mean, you didn't know that people were schizophrenic. They didn't have names like that on the people. So when they found out that she was just like forgetful and stuff and didn't remember stuff and she could get in really bad trouble, I got to be the one who followed her around, made sure that she didn't get in trouble. I was only 7. And at that stage, it's like the one next to you is your boss. Even if they're only like an hour older than you, they're your boss. That's how we grow up in a family. So everybody in the family, when they have a small baby, everybody looks after that baby. It's not when the baby cries, you go give it over to the mother. When the baby cries, you have to take care of it. You have to change his pants. You have to get food for him, and you have to do that thing. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be your brother. When that baby cries and nobody's looking after that baby, then your brother gets up and does that job. Go get the baby, change his pants, makes him clean, and feeds him. Right? So it's not just women's work raising up that little kid. It's also the responsibility of all the guys in the family. If you have 14 brothers, they're all responsible to that one little baby. Right? And that's a promise that the men make at the beginning of that baby's life. All the uncles, the mother's brothers, and the dad's brothers. They all come into the house as soon as that new baby starts to cry. And when they come into the house, they all line up. And the first one will touch that baby on his stomach here, where they say soul spirit is within our body. They'll go touch that baby and make that promise. Forever into your future, I will take care of you. That is the promise. So if that person that you're touching grows up to be really paraplegic, or it's up to that child that he touched the stomach. It's the responsibility of that child to take care of that one that is sick. That's how that responsibility is given out in our families. But when we're all inside the house and there's lots of kids running around, they're the responsibility of everybody. And you don't hear anybody, any woman, any man yelling at a kid across the way. You don't yell at the kids. What happens is the one that's closest to them will go there and just touch them, like, shh, right? Like that. Shh. So when I do that, like, shh, as soon as they go, when I was teaching school to a whole bunch of little kids and they go, shh, they would say, you're not supposed to say that. And I said, what did I say? And they said, you were going to say, shut up. And I said, no. I said, shut up was not even in my mind. It's like, shh. I said, we grow up with that when we're crawling around on the floor and making lots of noise. Some big person will just look at you and say, hey. When the baby looks like this, they'll go, shh. Right? And that baby will just quiet down. I was one of those babies that you could not put down. Mm. All my life, I was. If I was living today, I would be ADHD. I had lots of caregivers. There's lots of people looking out for me because I didn't speak the language. I was in a sanitarium for 4 years when I was just a little kid. So I didn't know anything. I went there when I was 4 till I was 7. I didn't know anything about moms and dads and brothers and sisters, pets, bees, skunks, porcupines. It was like an experience. Experiential education is what they call it. So I went in and got all those things together. I know that I should never go approach a skunk in such a way as like that. I thought they were like a kitty. So I went over there to that skunk and he was like huge. He was big. And I was just small. So it was huge. But when I saw him, I went there and say, Gosha, 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 great. And I'm going like this to him with my hands out. And he looks at me, backs up. Right. And when he backed up, I went, Gosha, Gosha, Gosha. And he go, bang, bang, bang with his feet. And I go, Gosha. You think I would quit? No. Gosha, Gosha, Gosha. I would go like this to him. I went right close to him. I was just going to bend down. He spun around and he sprayed me right on my chest. And that just encompassed my whole being. I couldn't breathe. I felt like my eyeballs just fell right out of my head, and it's going like this, and I backed up and walked away from that skunk. And I didn't even know what his name was. His name was Jagog. Jagog is like, that's what they call Chicago. Chicago, because it stinks in Chicago. So that's what they call that. That's the name that they gave it, like a skunk. Yeah, yeah, Chicago. So it stinks like a skunk, right? Yeah. So that was the one experience. And with the porcupine, it was another thing. It's like my brothers and sisters said, I said, well, how do you get like the quills, right? Because that's what I was supposed to be doing, was getting quills. I said, how do you do that? So they told me you get a great big stick and you hit him right on the face. So when I saw the porcupine, I had like already a big stick. So I hit him right on the forehead. And I must weigh like 40 pounds because I was a skinny little kid, just a bag of bones is what they called me. Nana Bonjour is another names. And I go in like that little bit of force does not hit anything or hurt anything. So I hit him again. Nothing happened. He just kept walking towards me like this. So I stopped and I talked to him. As soon as I stopped and talked to him, he stopped. And I thought he was listening to me. And I told him, my Auntie Katie needs to have the quill. She's making boxes. So he looked at me, listened to me, and then he went, do again, walking away from me. And I took my big stick and hit him again as hard as I could. And his nose started to bleed. So I went like yelling. I was crying because his nose was bleeding. I went running home, and my mom heard me coming. So she come running out of the house and coming down the road. And she's saying, Jacques, what's the matter? I said, his nose is bleeding. She says, whose nose is bleeding? I said, his over there. And I showed her where the porcupine was. And the porcupine's sitting over there. And he's sitting up like this, looking, right? He didn't run away or anything. He's just sitting there looking. And I said, Mommy, I said, his nose is bleeding. She says, who told you to do that? So I told her that my brothers and sisters told me I had to hit him on the face. And she said, that's not how you do that. She says, I'll talk to your daddy. So she talked to my dad, and my dad come running. I stayed there with the porcupine. And my dad came. And he's had like an old tobacco sack. Woo! Spring is here.
Honeybee just came.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
As a hornet, he's got long legs. See, he's a wasp.
He's looking for a red.
It's a wasp. He's looking for flowers. He's looking for something sweet to eat. Oh, he's gone. Yep. Came and looked at us.
Yeah.
Was satisfied. Anyway, my dad came and he was bringing like potato sacks. And the old potato sacks were burlap bags, right? So he looks, he said, whenever you see something, he said, you don't have to hit it. He says, were you trying to kill him? And I said, no, I just wanted the quills. Oh, he said, well, this is how you do it. And he threw the burlap bag over the porcupine and he tapped it a little bit all over. And then he pulled it off really, really carefully. And he was so careful. And I said, just take it real fast. And he said, no. And I said, how come? He said, it's not only the person that the quill goes into that hurts. When you take the quill from the porcupine, that hurts him. That hurts him. So I said, well, Auntie Katie wanted some. He says, come with me. So he said, what you gonna do about him? I said, oh, so give him some Samoa. I go over there and put Samoa down for him. I said, get you, go ahead. And we went into the house and he says, Jacques, he said, come with me. He took me outside to the shed and he said, here, give these to her. And he had a great big jar of quills. He said, here, give them to her. And I said, okay, so I did. But that kind of learning experience is what I got because I was not up to par with my learning and my education, my bush education. I didn't have any. I didn't have any of it. So I want to say thank you for listening to me. And I'm sure you can find those stories on the computer. I really do. Maybe if you even just type in Porky White. His name is Porcupine, by the way, Shgog. Gog, not Shgog, Gog. Yeah, the other one that stinks is Shgog. Yeah, skunk is Shgog. Porcupine is Gog. So that's his real name. His spirit name is Gog, Gog White. And he will tell you. I'm sure the story will come out. I have a book that he wrote and he told somebody the story. I have it at home. So, Miigwech. Miigwech.
So I didn't know you were going to get 4 stories. It's so lucky.
Yeah, the bonus.
The bonus.
That was 5
And-
stories. That was 5.
It was 5. Oh, look at, I even missed one in there. There's the story before the story and the
Yes.
story that goes with the story. So I
That's
hope
cool.
that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you can listen to that and think about that natural process, because it's woven all through those stories of Mother Earth and relating to her in a good, kind way. And if you'd like to learn more about it, I've started putting together some teachings that can be shared on a website. It's called edgeofthebush.ca. And so you can learn a little bit more about what we're doing. And if you're interested in learning more about how to use that pedagogy, Diane and I, with the help of some New Zealanders with Story Park, are working on creating a community of practice there, so that we can start looking at different, best practices. So we can look at different ways to think about that seasonal pedagogy, so that people can begin that baby step of just learning how to listen to those stories and how to walk with little ones in that way, because you watch them, they'll do those things. The last thing that we want to mention too is next month, in the moon of the sucker moon, which is when day? April. My friend Isaac Crosby from Evergreen Brickworks is going to come up, and we're going to be working on some gardening. So we're thinking about planting seeds. And as you heard from Gokumis, seeds work in a lot of different ways. And the ones that we don't pay attention to are the ones that it's the story before. It's when things are still just a spark and a spirit. And so we want to try to connect it up in an Ojibwe worldview and way of thinking to help bring that awareness, so that when you're doing your planning and when you're thinking about your activities with kids, you start to think about the full circle and not just parts of it. And I just want to call myself out on that, as I was planning on doing some maple syrup activities with you. And the one I was thinking about is I grew up seeing those dugout logs with the stones, the grandfather stones in them at the sugar bush, and saying, oh, this is old Anishinaabe way of doing it. And right next to it, I think I've got them over here actually. Right next to it, oh, one of my little friends found it. Could I borrow that antler from you for a minute? I just want to show the people on TV. Oh, Miigwech. Oh yeah, we'll take care of that. You're right. That's not safe, eh? Could you just, I don't want you to be on TV. Could I just borrow that antler?
My mom has the same computer as you.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So we see these logs. The kids have been experimenting with it here. So you'd see these logs out with those grandfather stones. And we talked to, and you might have even heard that story about them heating the stones up in the fire, and you can see the kids have been playing over here. And then taking those stones out of the fire with that Wabash Keshi, that antler. And so that was how it was set up at where I used to work at Forest Valley Outdoor Education Center. And I always thought that was what was done. And then I went with my Sama and I talked to my auntie, and she said, no, those antlers are just for Sweat Lodge. And there's a certain ceremony that it connects with. And so I didn't think of the full process. And I didn't make the connection to the teachings to start with. And that's one of those seeds and those sparks is the teachings. It's how I heard it. So now how I heard it, I wanted to be sure to share it in this context because I know lots of people in lots of outdoor centers talk about picking up those stones with those antlers. And yeah, you can do that, but not for making maple syrup. That's more utilitarian, as I was taught. And so we can use things, different types of sticks to pick those up. And I also was thinking about putting some sap in that log and starting to heat it up. But then I realized I can't do that I can't follow the full story. I can't bring it to a whole place of relationship and passing in the time that we have. I think we're already over time, aren't we, Diane? And so instead, what I did was listening to that story, as that was my birth, that was the spark that I'm going from. I tried to think about what I could do to show you. And so what we did is we had some sap already harvested from Courtright. And then I added some of that sap to my stew, just like that story about the Potawatomi young woman. And so when I cooked my stew with that sap, we're going to eat that now for our ceremony. So we bring it full circle from the story to the making and the doing, the movement, to the relationship, and then to the give back, the passing, so that it gives that good, beautiful food. So we've done that whole thing just while we're talking. And I couldn't do any of those other things and bring it that full circle through that full 4 seasons pedagogy. So if you want to learn more about that, please have a look at those. Join us next month, but you can also have a look at that website. And I know my friend Diane Cashin here has also been doing some documentation on her website to talk about applying this pedagogy as a settler person coming and thinking about how to use this in a respectful and kind way, because these lessons are for all 4 directions. They're not just red way, they're all ways. And it's just trying to have that kind relationship with Mother Earth. So we're going to close now. Is there anything else, Diane, that we should add?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for sharing in the chat room. We do have people from BC, from Manitoba, from Quebec and England, and all over Ontario. So we are so grateful for you to be here and to share with us while we are discussing and learning more about maple trees
and celebrating spring.
Spring. And we will send you a recording, and we'll send you our information links to my website or my blog, to Hopi's, which I did put up, Edge of the Bush, and anything else you need. I did put my email into the chat room. If you want an invite to our community of practice with Story Park, then I'm happy to invite you. I just need your email to do that. And we are just continuing to work on all of these ideas, applying them to pedagogical documentation, to professional learning, and just moving forward in a good way with the York Region Nature Collaborative. So thank you so much for everything that you have contributed to this session. Thank you, Gitcha to Hopi, and to Jock, and to everybody there in the wigwam. We are really jealous that we're not joining you. But we know that there will be time that we can all be together face to face, and that'll keep us going. Thank you.